welcome back. Welcome back to my tribe. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. As always, today I'm welcoming you with a wonderful guest. I'm already super excited for that conversation, and I'm absolutely sure that you would be excited too when you hear what is the topic of our today's conversation. But before we start, Zuza, thank you very much for accepting my invitation. It's an enormous pleasure and honor to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
So, Zuza, maybe some of my audience does not know you. Maybe your face is not yet familiar, but it will be changed, right? Would you be so kind and introduce yourself?
Of course. So, as you mentioned, my name is Zuza. I have been working as an Agile coach, ops manager, Scrum Master, organization development, and leadership accelerator for the past 10 plus years. And the last 8 years I have spent as an Agile coach at Spotify. And before that, I've been working in Warsaw, in Poland.
Mm-hmm. And where are you currently located?
I'm in Stockholm, Sweden. I've been living here for over 8 years now with my husband and my kid. Uh, yeah, and I think we might talk a little bit how I ended up being here a bit later.
Yes, definitely, definitely. That's an interesting story. So here comes the surprise. Well, it's no longer a surprise. So a lot of people talk about Spotify model or how
Mm.
Spotify does their agile ways of working. So today, ladies and gentlemen, my wonderful audience, I'm giving you Zuza, who knows how it was done at Spotify. So I'm hoping that we will learn some valuable insights and finally someone who spent significant amount of time there so she can tell us the truth, real valuable insights. So Zuza, let's start from the very beginning of your career. What were your first professional jobs, and what was your very first experience when it comes to Agile and Scrum?
So actually, my very first job experience had nothing to do with Agile or Scrum. I'm a statistician and sociologist by education, and my first job was in market research. But after a few years, uh, I wanted to change the field that I was working in, and I was looking for a job in IT. And the job that I found was in a small software house where I got a job as a QA specialist.
Mm-hmm.
And because it was a small company, I was also responsible for the overall quality of the products they were building. And very quickly, I realized that there's no process in there, and without a proper process, they can't assure enough quality in what they are building. So I went to the founders and asked if it would be possible to introduce some elements and processes that would help them build a reliable and sustainable product. And a month in, I became a Scrum Master for that team. Uh, they lost funding quite quickly, so this company no longer exists. But with a few months of experience as a Scrum Master there, it was fairly easy for me to find another job in that role, also in Warsaw. And I worked in a fantastic company, software house, with multiple awards, mostly for their design. We were about 50 people working from a villa in Warsaw. We had a fantastic community of people who really enjoyed working with each other. Uh, and one day, Spotify reached out and asked if we would like to go through a recruitment process to them. Uh, yeah, maybe I should pause here and ask if you have any questions, because that was like a very brief and quick walkthrough.
Oh, wow. That's a really interesting story, and I'm so stoked to hear that. I feel like you have a very interesting background, and I absolutely appreciate your educational story. I think that as a specialist, right, as a professional, you are bringing great skills to the field of Scrum Mastery.
I think so, especially nowadays. I didn't see the connection at the beginning. At the very beginning, I was always seen as an outsider,
Mhm.
someone with no technical background, with no uh, experience in development. And with that, it was quite tricky to get some of my first jobs. Even at Spotify, we can talk about that later. That was a huge discussion that must have happened if they are okay with hiring people with absolutely no programming experience. But now I see this as a huge benefit with my like logical thinking skills that
Mhm.
come from having a specialization in statistics, and with my understanding of human systems and human dynamics. I think this actually is to my benefit.
I agree. I agree. I think that you're absolutely right. So I would love to ask before we go to the Spotify history, I would love to ask a question regarding this company that you mentioned. So, do you recall any specific elements, any specific patterns, behaviors that allow you, your team, allow this company to achieve this level of excellence and those great outcomes? Because I will be honest, that sounds fantastic. Like, how cool is that to work for a company that is able to get this kind of awards that is recognized, right? It's fantastic for your motivation.
Absolutely. And I think motivation must have been a huge part of that. And getting the awards for the design also meant that they were able to attract other people from this field, where I think they were really bad, like one of the best in Poland at that time. I can't really speak to engineering as a craft because that's not my area of expertise. So to answer a question, I would probably need to lean on what I know about, so more around culture and around processes that we had in place. And I think a huge element that allowed for all that success was a huge trust that we all felt from the founders. Uh, they allowed us to experiment and try new things. And even though it was a software house, so we were always bound by contracts with our clients, and we were always trying to do our best for their benefits. We always made sure that there was time for us to learn. Uh, we were constantly working on open source projects, giving back to community. Knowledge sharing was a huge part of that.
Mhm.
Uh, and because it was fairly small, I mean, when I compare it to Spotify scale, uh, so we were about 50 people. It We very much had the all hands on deck approach. So whenever there was an issue, it didn't matter what your role was. You were responsible for fixing it or trying to do something about it, and it really showed. And I think our clients must have seen it too, that we don't shy away from any problems, or we don't say, "Oh, this is not like I need to stay in my line." This constant improvement mentality was visible in everything that we did.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for that. That also reminds me of the environment with high psychological safety, right?
Absolutely. Although I didn't know that's what it was called at the time, uh, and my yeah, I think it came with experience that I understood that this is what it's called. Uh, but you're absolutely right, and I think what speaks to the fact is that we had a specific role called Chief Happiness Officer or Chief Wellbeing Officer, and her sole responsibility was to make sure that we continuously give each other feedback and we seek areas of improvement. And she allowed for the psychological safety to happen and be in place in all situations, even difficult ones.
Mhm. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much. So let's go back to to the story with Spotify then. So Spotify contacted this company, right, that you used to
That's
work
correct.
for, and there was a recruitment process, right? Can you tell us a little bit how did it go? What do you remember? What are your most interesting insights from that recruitment process?
Of course. So I want to be super clear about the fact that we went through a regular recruitment process. It was not something that was just given to us. What we were lucky that Spotify reached out and knew about the company, but we still had to go through all the regular processes that Spotify had in place to hire us. So we had a first round of interviews from our Warsaw office, and then 17 of us got invited for an on site interview in Stockholm. And when we went there, we had half a day of interviews, each of us doing this individually, and then half a day of Spotify trying to convince us how great it would be to work for them. And for me personally, that was interesting experience because it was the first moment when I realized that the job is actually in Stockholm and not in Warsaw.
Oh,
And since we worked in a software house, we were used to working for different companies or under different umbrellas, and we just thought that we would change the name on the board. We would just stop being what we were, and we would just be called Spotify. But that was not the case. So when I and two other of my colleagues got an offer, that was a huge decision to make. But I decided to take that, and and here I am.
wow, 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 wow. So, long story short, during recruitment process, you and your colleagues realized it's a job in Stockholm. So it means relocation to a different country with your family, you know, with the most important stuff, right? And you were chosen. You got a proposal from Spotify,
I got an offer, yes.
and you decided to take it.
Yes, yes, I did. We had a brief conversation with my husband, who thought it would be a good idea for me to go and check it out. And since in Sweden probation period lasts around 6 months, he thought, okay, go for 6 months, see if you like it, and then we can decide if we are both moving. But then to me, it was obvious that I wouldn't like it if he's not here with me. So he quit his job and moved here with me. I'm super grateful that he was willing to do that. Well, yeah. What I think was interesting during the interview process as well was I was the only woman who came to those on site interviews. And I haven't noticed at that time. That was not an important factor for me. But many people at Spotify later remembered me because I was the woman who came with this Polish company. Yeah, I just thought I would mention this because for them, it was unheard of to have such an inequality or like in a gender split.
Interesting. Okay, so all of that happened around 8 years ago.
Yes, I believe it must have been 2016.
Uh-huh. So it means that you spent a lot, right? It wasn't a very short journey, but a significant professional journey in your
Absolutely.
career to be a part of the Spotify. So would you be so kind and tell us the truth? So how Spotify works?
You're asking me what enabled the Polish company to be so successful, and I have an anecdote about that because when I joined Spotify and I was meeting all those new people, of course, it was a huge company even back then, and in my corridor conversations, people were asking, "Oh, so how do you like it? How much do you enjoy this? Like, are you overwhelmed with this amazing culture we have here?" And I really couldn't understand what they were asking me about. My response was like, yeah, I had this in my previous company. The only difference is the scale. Uh, so, the, maybe it's not a direct answer to your question, but I wanted to mention this because it's not unheard of to work at a company that has a similar culture to Spotify. Yeah, although I mean it was still great. I don't know what to say. So Spotify is huge. It has many different departments, and when I joined, I was part of one area. We had 3 coaches that were collaborating together, and 2 weeks after I joined, there was the first reorg I was a part of. Then 4 months later, there was another one, and 6 months later, another one. So within my first year at Spotify, we went through 3 big reorganizations. And I think that kind of set the tone for my stay there, that this is something that you're expecting, that things are going to change. Nothing is set in stone. Even if there are and it could be anything. It could be from how we work to priorities to team compositions. You need to be able to quickly adapt. And I think this is what was at the heart of Spotify culture. And how it was implemented, with this white paper about tribes and aligned autonomy, that's just implementation detail. But what truly was important were values that were underneath that, and those were around collaboration, communication, and quickly adapting to the changing environment.
So it's actually on the fundamentals values level what was the most important, and this, I would dare to say, quite famous story with tribes, tribe leaders, etc., right? It was just one of the implementation ideas, but based on what you said, it wasn't something that Spotify embraced for years, right?
It was something that they did for a long time, although now tribes no longer exist, tribe leads no longer exist.
Okay.
They moved towards something that they called studios, and more towards general managers, instead of splitting leadership roles into product, tech, and the design, as it used to be when I joined. But it was a model that was working for them at the time. They managed to create tribes or departments that were independent, that had a lot of freedom in deciding how they want to work. And this spirit is still true, even if the setup is different, if the names are different. I think part of the reason why the name Tribe was dropped was cultural, and as Spotify became a global brand, connotations for with this language was not something that Spotify wanted to support. So they decided to move away from the name. At the same time, as you mentioned, values and fundamentals stayed the same.
Mm-hmm. Sure. That's interesting. So you are now challenging a lot of my assumptions. I would be honest, I've never studied deeply all the history of so-called Spotify model. And what you are saying is actually filling my own gaps, Yeah. Okay. So the idea was there, but definitely it was connected with the theme from Agile Manifesto. So values, people, interactions over any processes and tools, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
A huge shift that has happened throughout the years were around duplication and we would say waste,
Okay.
but no one in the business world uses that word, right? So at the beginning, Spotify was saying, we want to be fast and we don't care about the fact that multiple teams would build the same solution as long as it makes them run faster. And that has changed in the last few years. And they said, we can no longer afford to have so many duplications. we can actually be faster if we work on fewer things at the same time. Which I think we could talk about. Like when we talk about this, we would use words like eliminating waste and yeah. So there's a different vocabulary that you would use, but these are not new concepts.
I see. Yeah, definitely. I would say focus on essentials, remove waste, and limit work in process, right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah,
people,
minimizing WIP.
exactly, minimizing WIP. So people who know about Kanban, right, and lean product development would understand those ideas very well. Surprise, surprise. Once again, humanity has discovered that if we do too many things, we may actually end up with a waste or duplications, as you said.
Sorry. I must say it was fascinating to observe it at this scale. And because those ideas about product development and they are easy to understand when you think about 1, 2, 3 development teams. But when you think at this scale of millions of users, millions of creators, and a company with that many people, when it suddenly looks a little bit different. And they need to come to this conclusion from a different point of view.
Yeah, very valid point. And still on the high level, we are speaking about same things, right?
Hmm?
So, Zuza, I'm curious, what are the things that you are proud of when it comes to your work at Spotify?
There are quite a few, I would say. Okay, which one do I pick first?
I don't know. You pick.
Okay. So I would start by one of the recent ones. So about a year ago, the department that I was working at had to merge with another department. And I helped with that merger from the process side, culture side, and making sure that these two departments, when merged together, don't lose their productivity, that two cultures can be merged seamlessly, and that we get a buy-in from everyone. And the part that I'm most proud of is there were many people who didn't work with me before who were reluctant to get me involved and who didn't understand why I want to spend so much time to get a buy-in from the whole organization to go through this change. And the same people coming to me 2 weeks later saying, now I understand. Seeing the involvement from everyone, how everyone focuses on solving problems and not thinking, oh, am I going to lose my job? What does this reorg mean for me? We took all of those worries away and people could truly focus on finding best solutions and being surrounded by people who are brave enough to admit that they were wrong. It was truly a proud moment for me.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. That's a huge, huge accomplishment, when your actions bring those kind of outcomes and people are able to spot it. People are able to experience that and appreciate it.
Yeah. And this, to some extent, this is external validation that what I'm doing is right. Because I've had many, and also it helped me later when working with those people, and they became my advocates, which also made my work a bit easier later on. Because other than that, when I think about my proudest moments, those are usually very private. Those are moments where I was mediating between two senior leaders, or I had private conversation with someone who I thought didn't behave according to our values, and that person managed to see how their behavior affected others and change it. But those are not like big successes, or definitely not something I can tell in details anyone else about. Yeah, but this merger with this public recognition of people coming and saying, yeah, I didn't believe in you, but now I understand what you do, and I think it brings value. That was big.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to hear such stories, you know. So you are bringing real life example that those things are possible, right? Tough, challenging, but also possible.
Yeah, but we go back to what we said at the beginning about huge trust and psychological safety and finding this safety in you to take actions and to say things that might not be the easiest things to say or might not be popular, but still sticking with it and believing in your gut.
Sure, sure. I agree 100%. Do you remember the biggest challenges that you have faced during your time when working for Spotify?
I'm smiling because in my world, I struggle personally with answering questions about the biggest struggle, or I am very much a person of nuance and a person of all the gray areas. So I struggle a little bit with thinking about the greatest struggle. But I'll try. I'll find a struggle to talk about.
Okay, that's fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, I think it might be connected to what I mentioned, like working with people who haven't worked with me before and were openly saying they don't believe in what I do. It was a struggle, but having a good support system around me and people who did believe in me was definitely helping. Actually, one of the biggest struggles or things that took a huge toll on me happened at the very beginning of my career or at my job at Spotify. About a month in, I became part of the leadership group and I started coming to leadership meetings. And I realized there is one leader who runs the meeting, takes the notes, speaks 90% of the time, and generally was not creating super collaborative meeting. And I was new. I didn't know this person super well, but I felt that I need to do something about it. That's not how it should be working. So I signed up to a course called Crucial Conversations. I worked for a full day, and during the course you prepare for an important conversation. So I spent a whole day preparing for a conversation with that lead, taking notes, thinking how I can approach this. And I met him the next day on the corridor, said, "Hey, can we talk? I have noticed this thing." And I didn't even manage to say much when he was like, "Oh, I didn't realize. Can you tell me what to do?" So my whole preparation went out the window. It was completely unnecessary. But it gave me it it gave me a feeling that I can do this. That I was willing to risk it and try and talk to him. He was the most wonderful person to give feedback to, but I didn't know that at the time. So yeah, so now I know that it was an overkill to take a full day workshop just to prepare for this, what ended up being 5-minute conversation. But at that point, it was a real struggle for me. How do I approach this? How do I speak to him? What options do I have at repair if it doesn't go according to plan?
Oh, wow. That's super impressive. How much effort and preparations you decided to to invest your time, your energy. And at the same time, when I listen to your story, I have a feeling that maybe one of the most important things in that process was preparing yourself for that, because I've been studying different topics, also the ones related to career, to generally your personal growth. And I realized that one of the biggest obstacles is related to what's happening in your head.
Of course.
So your emotions, your approach, this might be the biggest obstacle that stops you from acting. And what you have chosen, in my view, is, well, it's an expensive solution, but it helps you act. So big kudos for that.
Thank you. I think you're absolutely right that a lot of the effort was within me. The obstacle was within me. And, you know, coming from Poland, suddenly working in Sweden, first month on the job, I didn't feel like I was in a position of power or a position of comfort, even to mention things that I observe. And I think this experience was extremely helpful in my further endeavors because it built me up. It helped me realize that, yes, my voice is valid and my observations are uh, useful for others. So I shouldn't be holding back.
That's a great story. Very, very amazing story. You mentioned another topic that is also interesting for me, because I've never worked like, not just for a few days visiting colleagues that you previously met via internet, right? But I've never worked like for longer outside of Poland, right? And I'm super interesting. What was your experience when you decided to, on one hand, move to a different country, but also to start working with people who speak, well, I dare to say that maybe at the very beginning you were not able to speak Swedish, right? So what was
Well, I
that
still
experience?
don't. I still don't. And Spotify is definitely an English speaking company. And even though on a corridor you can hear people speaking Swedish to each other, English is definitely an official language. And uh, even 8 years ago, when I joined, most squads or development teams, as we used to call them, had a rule that whenever they talk about work, it has to be in English. Because they didn't want to exclude anyone. And everyone understood how valuable it is to listen in on other people's conversations. So even if you're not a prime person taking participating in the conversation, it's still useful for your teammates to hear what you're talking about. So Swedish was not an issue, right? Is basically what I'm trying to say. Because Spotify hired so many people from around the world and relocated them to Stockholm, it was truly an international place, and many people were in a similar situation that I was, new to the country, new to the company. So there were many people who were seeking new connections, new friends, new people to spend time with. So that I think was helpful. It was not like I joined an established company with people who knew each other for years and years, and I was suddenly the only foreigner. Everyone was in a similar situation. Yeah, and many people understanding my position and remembering how it was for them reached out, invited us out, spent time with us, and yeah, helped with adapting our life to new circumstances.
Nice. So it sounds like this whole environment was prepared to help you build meaningful relationships, because you are not the only one who was not speaking Swedish. Plus, I feel like making English an official language is is helpful, right?
It was helpful, definitely, and yes, and not only making it an official language, actually sticking with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about having a policy. It's actually people using English in their day-to-day communication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Thank you for clarification. So, reflecting back on those years spent in Spotify, um, what are your lessons, some kind of memories, things that you want to remember and you are willing to share with my audience?
I think many of them will be very personal to me, so I don't know how transferable those would be for others. But I hope it would be useful for others to hear that too. Uh, I did a lot of growing as I was at Spotify, uh, both work-wise and personal-wise. So I am definitely a different person than when I started. Uh, I um, hmm, I'm trying to think of an example of something that I can share about that. Uh, yeah, I'm definitely much braver. I'm willing to take risks. I am. I'm willing to speak my mind. Uh, I've always been a person for whom integrity was a huge deal, and I'm still like that. Uh, Going through so many changes as Spotify did also helped me build even bigger resistance and resilience than what I had to begin with. And it helped me recognize what I am truly good at. And I know that I work best when I have partners. So building partnerships is the way to go for me, and how important trust is, and that it's worth investing in building relationships and in building trust, even if there is no immediate benefit to having that. It will bring fruits later.
Wow. This is a very powerful statement. And I think it's also connected with some of the things that I've recently experienced. So maybe it's a good moment to summarize our conversation. So, Zuza, if you could think about the best place for you, for your future work, for professionals like you are, what would you mention? Like top three things.
For like a great place to be.
Professionally, yes.
Okay, so for me, it always come back to values. So I would look for a place that doesn't question my integrity and honors allows me to act with integrity. I would look for a place where I can feel belonging. So it's important for me to have like a safe harbor that I can go back to and be myself and share my worries and the difficulties. At the same time, I highly value my independence. So I'm looking for a place that can trust me and can give me enough freedom to act uh, according to what I believe is best.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That sounds like a professional who wants to take accountability and at the same time collaborate with others, right? So this collaboration and
Absolutely.
co-creation is also an important aspect.
I think today it would be, there are so few roles where you can actually work alone. I think uh, I can't even imagine someone working independent, like fully independently. Uh, so I haven't even mentioned collaboration because it's such a obvious thing. It's just a given.
Sure, sure thing. Okay, so thank you very much, Zuza, for your time, for your commitment, and for all the stories that you shared with me, with my audience. Now I'm really happy because I know that There is truth in the so-called Spotify model, but it wasn't. It was never the most important thing. That what truly makes a Spotify culture was related to foundations, values, how those values were visible, how people were showing and experiencing those values. And at the same time, it's no longer valid. So it's clear. It's clear
Yeah.
now.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. And I wish you all the best in your upcoming challenges. I hope that one day we will have a chance to meet face to face. And
Likewise.
everyone, thank you for watching. Thank you for spending your time with us. And please come back to me anytime. Enjoy your day. Have a good night. Bye.
Thank you again. Bye.